into the court case. With, you got that, Eric? All right. There's so many parts of this uh, court case. Number one, when you see manumission, understand that manumission and emancipation is the same thing. Okay. Um, the act of manumission or emancipation confers no other right but freedom from the dominion of the master, limited liberty of locomotion. I mean, and civil and political powers. I mean, this right here was so clear about how black is a status that they can define because they created. And then their education system just teaches you that that's who you are, even though you got generations of people born in this country. Generations and generations and generations. I ask you guys, to read this over and over again, two, three, four times, because every time I read it, I got something different out of it. Status resembles much more the ancient republics, right? So when I went into Rome, when we talked about Justice Daniel's opinion on the Dred Scott case, I went back to the ancient Rome and the ancient republics because of this court case here, because it was explaining how our slavery was. See, the villain is where they came from. When they're talking about the villain, they're talking about the system in England that they left when they came to America. And they saying that this whole status system is much more different than the one we came from. We copy from the ancient republics, this slavery. Their slaves like ours had no name but what the masters gave them, right? Slavery in America, if you was a slave, you had no name. The only time you got status was when you were freed, and that's when you became a free black. That became your new name, your new identity, okay? And then it talks about they could purchase nothing. They had no heirs and all of this type of stuff. The fruits of their labor and industry belong to their masters, right? This is all about an exploited class, okay? And when the state took over, right, the way that they get you, exploit you, is through tickets, pulling you over. You pay the state bills because of all the ways they exploit you through tickets and pulling you over, and criminals and crime and state penitentiaries and all that type of stuff. It's just the ways that they exploit your class now. Let me see here. Now watch this. And this was not only the civil law, but the laws of the Jews, the Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, and all other nations and tongues of people. And so what I started to understand is the way that they understand history, what their education system was. When I started to read it over and over again, and I started to understand what was common now, this case, and this guy gets to talking freely about how this planned country was put together and how they copied it from Rome. He's talking so plainly, and he's really starting to show us what their education system was, what they were taught, how they understand greatness was created. And when they look at all of these different societies, the Jews, Phoenicians, all of these used slavery to become great. And they thought that in order for us to be great, we was going to have to do a system like this too. Let me see here. They talk about the ratio. Oh man, here we go. He says, okay, I needed to move that here. The relationship, watch this. The relationship of master and slave was just as indispensable in any well-ordered state is that of husband and wife. When we talk about what the European ethos is, how they see the world, what's important to them, how they understand right and wrong, morals, and so on and so forth, they're telling you that the master slave, the way that they understand, the way that they are educated at this time, is that the relationship of master and slave was as important in a well-ordered state as that of husband and wife. If that's not a completely deep statement to make about how we see the world, how it's no way in the world that we're ever going to give up on slavery because we think it's indispensable as just as much as my wife, husband and wife. We're never going to get rid of it. We're going to always come up with some propagandic, situation, some type of lie, some type of con to make you believe that it's over, but we're never going to get rid of it. Let me see here. He said something else here too about how this just didn't happen to just dark skinned people. This happened to white people too. Oh, here we go. There it is right there. Okay. Watch this. Such was the condition of white slaves in the democratic Greece and the Republic of Rome. So when people think that this whole racism is about skin color, right? How can it be about skin color? We copied a system that did it to white people. In ancient Greece and Rome, white people was the niggas of those societies. So we can't feel no type of way about no skin color. That's the con that they try and give you now. They put these whites in the same trick bag that they are putting us in right now in order to become great. In order to have a great society. That's how they felt. And so don't get it twisted. Don't feel no type of way. Don't think they picking on Africa or nothing like that. They don't care who the people are. As long as they can create status, then they're going to do it at all costs. This is not about skin color. So these are just things that I picked up throughout this court case by reading it 150 times. And I encourage y'all to read it about 15. Let's see. What has been stated is that villanage, the place that we left, the system that we left, differed extremely from slavery or the civil law, as ancient slavery, and that our law of African slaves corresponds much more closely to that of the former, ancient, and that effect of manumission or emancipation by the civil law. Even our law system is copied off of the Greeks and Romans. And so, I don't know how, in it you guys are about, self-taught law and all that type of stuff, but do you want to understand American law? Study the ancient law of Rome. A lot of the stuff in there corresponds directly to our country. They're copied. This is nothing new. Our history teach you that this Constitution and this great country did something new to the planet. This is propaganda, so you won't be able to think that you can go into history and see exactly what they copy from. Okay? So the whole time we're going to show you, and we're showing you now, that if you're greatly educated in this country, understand that you got a lot of con. All right.
Jelani?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
So I just want to make sure I understand something. So basically, they have, like you said, they have no intention of letting go slavery.
It is a part of their ethos. It is the way that they see the world.
Right. And okay, not just here in America, but globally.
Well, definitely here in America. And as you can see, you can make an argument for globally too.
Right. And so basically, it's kind of like what my instructor said a long time ago when I took so-called black studies at the time. She said, well, when she was talking about racism, she said it never goes away. It just only changes form. So
Well,
like,
we
so
we
in this
we
case, it's going to change form in some way, shape, or form. You just have to know how to recognize it.
what we doing is we exposing the con. We just like
Okay.
those people that come on and they show you the magician's tricks.
Mhm.
What we doing is we showing you the magician's tricks. That's what we doing right now. We showing you every little point in history where they threw the trick bag in. That's what we really doing. And so we pointing out like this court case is telling he get to talking real, loose lip, showing us exactly how they think and how they were educated. See, when we get into this, the more you understand them and how they see the world, then you'll understand what they did to create the situation that we in now. That's why we got you checking white. Guess what? How many people through the education system that we've gotten would ever have thought that your way out was going to whiteness? No, we think everything that we've ever been taught was that they, them, and you somebody else and be proud of who you are. Nah, that's the trick. So this is cleverly put together. And as we continue to go down this court case, all they telling you is how they set it up. Manumission or emancipation was this big trick bag, but it didn't change no state in them. Watch this. Anciently in Rome, the manumission of a slave produced no change in state in them. So we gonna give them this emancipation, but it ain't gonna change no state in them. We just gonna let him off the plantation, but he's still gonna be our slaves. The con, because just like you said, they never really want to get rid of this. But we can't assist them. We've been assisting them by checking black and talking about how black great is and all of this type of stuff. We've been helping the con. Sometimes when you look up con, can we do that right now? Let's go to con. Confidence game, right? Ain't that a short for confidence game?
Yeah.
Confidence game. Let's just look at the quick definition because I don't want it to be me saying it. We're going to the confidence trick. We're going to the videotape. We're going to the definition. All right. Confidence trick. Right? Is an attempt to defraud a person or a group. Right? After first gaining their confidence. We freeing you. Okay? Used in the classical sense of trust. Confidence trick exploits characteristics of the human psyche, such as credulity, is a state of willingness to believe in one or many people or things in absence of reasonable proof or knowledge. You citizens now, even though you ain't got no real proof of it, the way they treat you is the same stuff. Even though we say that everybody born here is that's that. Oh, look, then naivety, based on compassion, vanity, irresponsibility, and greed. Researchers define the scheme as a distinctive species of fraudulent conduct intending to further the voluntary exchanges that are not mutually beneficial. Watch this. Intending to further the voluntary exchanges that are not mutually beneficial. Isn't race voluntary? Right? So when we hit in black, this was a voluntary exchange, even though it was not mutually beneficial. We was conned. Race is a confidence trick. And they use the way you voluntarily hit that racial category is a voluntary exchange between you and the system. And guess what? It has not been mutually beneficial. Guess what? The system been winning and you've been losing because you've been conned. All right. Let's go back to the Yep, that makes sense. Somebody's
Jelani, can I
yes,
ask a question?
yes, ma'am. Come on.
Great. This is Oyo, and this is my first time being on, so I'm,
Welcome.
just trying to put all these pieces together. Who is they specifically when you referred to they? Because you said that is the so-called white and black people were conned, and we've been buying into this game for them to benefit, and we don't. We think we're free, but we're not. So who specifically is they? Are they humans? Are they?
When I say they, in this country, everybody has to be conned for this system to work. Okay? If white people knew, well, when I say white people, I mean pale skinned people who call themselves white in America, if they knew that the privilege and the supremacy was connected to them checking white as a race, then we would have known this a long time ago. But the con got to be for everybody. They can't know and we can't know how this privilege is being given. So now, because everybody con, the game keep going and going and going and going, and these categories separate.
Yeah.
That's right. The categories create the analytics needed and the separation needed to give supremacy and privilege to one group and create disenfranchisement to the next group. And all of these are voluntary exchanges because race is voluntary. We just didn't understand the choice we were making in race. We're being taught that we're born this way, but they keep asking us, right? So you start to see the inconsistencies of why in the world would the system keep asking you if it's obvious looking at you what race you are. But no, they need your voluntary compliance in order to make this work. Okay? And so a part of a con, you have to understand that a piece and a part of a con is you voluntarily exchanging in a certain way that creates the perpetualness of this con. You gotta know that you playing a part too. And so even the way we approach racism in this country, we always approach it as if whites gotta do something in order to change it when the play ain't on them. The play has always been on us to accept the citizenship and end this.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody else, please. You got a question? Or I'm going to keep going with this court case.
It's Ryan.
Hit me.
Okay, so a lot of the material I read it over and over, and it seemed like, I know for me, some of the assumptions that they were mentioning, like about voting and all of this other stuff, the civil part of, I guess, the community, is being actually demonstrated where the limitations on, say, like voting, for instance, that's not officially a law given to free colors.
It's not a right. It's not a right for non-whites. It's a privilege given to them through the Voting Right Act. That has to be I think it has to be redone every 50 years or something. And so this case also talks about how the rights for blacks have to be decided through legislation. So they're not really rights, inalienable. It's white privileges are what black rights are. See, because everybody else's right to vote was secured through the 15th Amendment. But non-whites got the Voting Rights Act. And so that's an example of how there's a difference between what governs your right to vote. One's is through the 15th Amendment, another one is through an act that was given to them, a privilege given to them by a group that a group of legislators who decided to give blacks voting privileges, basically. That makes sense, Narayan?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because I've heard that before. It's just like, so all those who check white are identified as white have these inalienable privileges or rights, but those who are not or don't check aren't a true citizen and do not. And
They
are
have
just,
privileges. They have the citizens have rights. The non-citizens have privileges that must be decided.
Okay.
Yep,
Gotcha.
that's the difference. We say as a citizen, I got rights secured under this Constitution, right?
Right.
And unalienable rights that's not covered under, and the ones that's not covered in the Constitution, those are God-given rights, birthrights, just like your citizenship. But then non-citizens, they don't have no guaranteed rights in here, and we get to decide what the non-citizens can do here. They have privileges given to them by government, where citizens have rights given to them by God. That's the divide.
Gotcha. Much appreciated.
And the whole part about this to be, is this is a voluntary choice. That's how important what you guys are doing are. Because your choice is between rights and privileges. Citizenship or non-citizenship. Civil and political rights or not. All right. Let's keep going down here. Such is the result of manumission here, or emancipation, the slave is dismissed from the dominion of the master, clothed with the privileges of going where he pleases. Privileges meaning we get to decide, right? But to become a citizen of the body politic, capable of contracting and marrying and voting, requires something more than the mere act of enfranchisement. Right? Watch this. To adopt into the body politic a new member is a vastly important measure in every community. Right? It is an act of sovereignty, just as much as naturalizing a foreign subject. Listen closely. The highest act of sovereignty a government can perform is to adopt a new member with all the privileges and duties of citizenship. This is big time stuff here, because now when we get another citizen, we got another boss. So the highest thing we could do is bring in another boss. You think we gonna make bosses out of these former slaves who don't even understand how our systems work here? Who can barely speak the language? They like, wait a minute, man. Look, was there a general law elevating free persons of color to this condition? Then the assent of the government would have been given in advance of manumission. Okay? Now he telling you how the government work. Watch this. If we meant to create citizens out of them, we would have made a law before the act of manumission, letting you know what the new status of these people would be once manumission or emancipation happened. This is the way it worked here. Then he asks, look, no such act is claimed. We didn't create no, they gonna be citizens before we didn't do that. None exists. The black man in this state may have power of volition. He may come and go without the domestic master to control his movements, but to be civilly and politically free, to be the peer and the equal of the white man, to enjoy his offices, trusts, and privileges our institutions confer on the white man. This ain't about skin color. Has never been and never will be the condition of this degraded race, right? Why, when somebody say it so plainly, right, do we still fight for black rights and stuff like that? When they telling you straight up, not in this country. This is an exploited class in this country. Know what your position is here. And if you decide to stay there, that is your voluntary choice. But understand what the game is. You will always be second class here if you choose that class. All right. Let's keep going here. All right. Now watch this. Where should I go? We're going to start here. I do not refer to these severe restrictions for the purpose of condemning them. I'm not talking all this shit about how we done trick bag these people into this position. I'm not saying it because I think that we shouldn't do it. I ain't condemning it. As a matter of fact, this move we doing, they have they have my hearty and cordial approval. I like this game we playing. The great principle of self-preservation. And let me tell you how deep we are into this. Not only do I'm not condemning it, I love what we doing, and our self-preservation demands on the part of the white population unceasing vigilance and firmness. The Republican Party, as well as uniform kindness, justice, and humanity, the Democratic Party. See, we need to come at them with a hard hand and a soft hand. But both of their hands are doing what? Everything must be done to interdict, which is calculated to render the slave discontented with his condition, or which would tend to increase his capacity for mischief. We saying that everything we do, hard hand, soft hand, this, that, we all want to make sure it's calculated now to render this slave, because even as a free black, you're still in a condition of slavery. We want to make sure that we increase his capacity of mischief. We want all of this is calculated to keep you in this spot. And I just mentioned the Republican Party and the Democratic Party because some people think that one of them got your back and the other one that. All of these is one of them coming with the unceasing vigilance and firmness, right? The obvious racist MAGA hat, red Republican Party that everybody knows hates you, as well as the uniform kindness and justice and humanity of the Democratic Party. They doing the same thing. They use race to keep you in this. They want you to stay black as much as the Republicans do because they know that it's their self-preservation. What do you say? The great principle of self-preservation demands us to do these to this people so we can continue to be great, so we continue to have some type of supremacy. When we talk about white supremacy and white privilege, it's at the expense of the blacks or the non-whites.